In the name of God, the Creator, Christ, the cosmic one, and the Spirit, the Sustainer. Amen. First of all, thank you very much, Kate, for inviting me to come along this morning on this, the third Sunday in Creation Time. It's a huge privilege and pleasure for Lynn and I to be back here, because St. Matthew's plays an important role in our life. Back over 20 years ago, I was offered a job in New Zealand, but we'd never been to New Zealand. So my prospective employers thought we should come for a visit. So Lynn and I and our daughter, Celeste, who was 6 at the time, came for a week in early 1997. And I'd asked the New Zealand Herald, my prospective employer, where we might go to church on Sunday. And Gavin Ellis, the then editor, suggested that we come here to St. Matthew's. And so we did. It was also the first time that I'd ever said the Lord's Prayer in Maori, so it seems to be very appropriate to be back here in Maori language week. After the service, I sort of hung back to have a chat with the vicar at the time, Peter Beck, to ask him what on earth the Anglicans got up to in New Zealand. And it sounded incredibly interesting. There was this whole new constitution, the three-tikanga church, and a wonderful new prayer book, which incidentally we had used at our church in New York some years before. So I thought, well, I'm not sure about the job, but I'll certainly enjoy church life in New Zealand. Actually, the job was fine for a few years, but the church life has been good for many decades now. And it's been wonderful to have enormous privileges, such as serving General Synod in 2014, 16 and 18, and to really experience the Three Tikanga Church in all its glory. Speaking of church, every time I come to worship, I like to sit close to the front on the left of the aisle, and as Lynn and I indeed gravitated there this morning. It's because I'm such a creature of habit, of very deeply ingrained habit. One of my earliest memories of church is sitting right there, because that's where my father, in his patriarchal way, always led our family to each Sunday at St. George's Church in Edgbaston, Birmingham. And that's, of course, where I still gravitate to today. Long ago, I fell into another deep habit, but a far worse one. At every Eucharist, I resort to my same little litany of sins. I cruise through confession on autopilot. Then, a few years ago in our parish, St. Andrew's, Epsom, I made for the first time a very different confession in our season of creation Eucharist. Repeating it in subsequent services in that creation time made it no easier a confession for me to make. It was so confronting. In making it, I admitted I was massacring the abundant life God creates. I admitted that I had shattered my relationship with God and His creation. Yet, I also knew that God wants me to confess my ecological sins so He can forgive me. So I have the hope and courage to try to restore my relationship with His creation. So in that spirit, please may I suggest we now work through that creation confession. And I will read each day, one by one, of God's 7 days of creation. And after each of those days, I will follow it with our mirror day of destruction. And after that, I'll then offer some facts about that destructive behaviour, and then some suggestions about what we might do to help heal our relationship with God and His creation. And then praise and thanksgiving is a really important part of that. So with each of those days, I will then turn to the Benedicite Aotearoa, and I'm going to enlist the choristers in this. Now, you would much prefer to hear them sing, but they're going to speak, because you'd much prefer to hear me speak rather than sing. And we're not going to go through the Benedicite Aotearoa verses values 1 to 13, I'm going to rearrange them appropriate for each of these days of creation and destruction. But I know the choristers are going to be right on top of this, and I will lead them to the right verse at each occasion. Just actually, as a very important note to give credit where credit is due, one of the wonderful things about New Zealand is how closely connected we are, which I think is one of our very great benefits, our great attributes as to why, as a peoples and as a country, we might be able to tackle some of these incredibly complicated issues of our destruction and creation. And it's really wonderful when I learned only a few years ago that this Benedicite was written especially for our prayer book by the Reverend Bruce Keeley, when he and his wife Diane were vicars of St Albans, the cooperating parish of Chartwell in Hamilton, before they were then vicars for many years out of All Saints' Hamlet. So, a confession for the season of creation. On the first day of creation, you split the darkness and created light. On our first day of destruction, we split the atom, exploded nuclear devices, and created a black mist of death. 9 nations have a total of 14,900 nuclear warheads. If just one of the most powerful ever built, Russia's Tsar bomb, was dropped on New York City, it would kill an estimated 7.6 million people, injure 4.2 million more, and spread radioactive fallout over 8,000 square kilometers, killing and injuring many more millions. To help repair our relationship with creation, we could, for example, relate well to each other. When we settle our differences and work together, communities thrive. When our communities thrive, our nation thrives. When our nation thrives, we can help other nations relate better to each other. Together, we can rid the world of nuclear and other weapons of mass destructions. And as we know in New Zealand, in what we've achieved so far with creating a nuclear-free Pacific, how important that is. So I now turn to the choristers, if I may, to read verses 8 and 9 of the Benedicite Auxiliary. On the second day of creation, you created the sky filled with clouds, stars, and fresh air. On our second day of destruction, we began burning fossil fuels, pumping fumes into the sky, and creating pollution. Since 1950, emissions from burning fossil fuels have increased more than 7-fold. As a result, temperatures are rising and the climate is changing. With this, we are deeply damaging the ecosystem, our life support system, which God created. To help repair our relationship with creation, we could, for example, drive less or use more public transport or walk more, rejoicing in nature. So now I turn to the chorus, please, with verse 3 of Benedicite Auxiliary. On the third day of creation, you gathered together the waters, revealing earth, the source of rich vegetation, forests, streams, and seeds for new life. On our third day of destruction, we began to strip the land, creating barren plains. Then we began to wood chip and burn the forests, removing over half Earth's vegetation in less than a human lifetime. We humans actively manage 75% of the land surface of the planet, excluding the permanent ice and snow-covered parts. And through our farming, mining, deforestation, and other activities, we actually move more of the Earth's surface each year than natural processes do. So, for example, here in New Zealand, we wash off our hills and paddocks 200 million tonnes of topsoil a year. To help repair our relationship with creation, we could, for example, eat less meat, grow some of our own food, and compost our food waste. So again, I turn to the choristers, please, for verses 4 and 5. On the fourth day of creation, you created the sun and the moon, and differentiated the day, the night, and the seasons. On our fourth day of destruction, we threw aerosols up into the sky, ripping apart the protective ozone above, and changing sunlight from friend to foe. We've changed the chemicals we use in aerosol sprays so the ozone hole is shrinking, but our ultraviolet levels are high because we have less air pollution here than many other countries. However, we create other kinds of aerosols, such as very, very fine particles from the likes of airborne soil or dust, or indeed from diesel engines. To help repair our relationship with creation, we could, for the high UV slip, slop, slap and wrap, and for airborne particles, we could try to avoid creating dust in many forms, particularly, for example, in the way we use the land. And if you have a diesel engine vehicle, trade in for a petrol or electric one. And another way to help repair our relationship with creation is to immerse ourselves in God's amazingly clear, bright night skies. So, verse 2, please, of Benediction. You sun and moon, you stars of the southern sky, give to our God your thanks and prayers. On the fifth day of creation, you called the sea and air to bring forth life of many kinds for the wonder and delight of all. On our fifth day of destruction, we created DDT, killing the fish of the seas and destroying unborn birds in the air. These days we use very, very little DDT, but many of our continued activities are destroying natural habitats. Thus, of our 30 indigenous species of marine animals here in our New Zealand waters, 1/4 are threatened with extinction. We have 92 species and subspecies of indigenous seabirds. 1/3 are threatened with extinction, and a further half are at risk of extinction. To help repair our relationship with creation, we could, for example, join forest and bird, fish wisely, help with a marine or land conservation project. So, verse 6, please. Dolphins and carver, sea lion and crab, coral and enemy, pigmy and shrimp, give to our God your thanks and prayers. On the sixth day of creation, you watched as the creatures of the land emerged, crawling, leaping, and playing games of life. On our sixth day of destruction, we looked away as multitudes of species disappeared through our destruction of their environments. Of our 168 species of native birds, just 20% are doing okay, 48% are in some trouble, and 32% are in serious trouble. Of our native plant species, 1/3 are threatened with extinction. Likewise are indigenous bugs. To help repair our relationship with creation, we could, for example, in our gardens, plant natives to help our native bugs, animals and birds multiply, trap predators, keep our cats in at night, or at least put a bell on them. So verse 7, please.
Rabbits and cattle, moths and dogs, kiwi and sparrow and tui and hawk, give to our God your thanks and praise.
On the seventh day of creation, you gave creation the blessing of rest to celebrate and sustain all life. On our seventh day of destruction, we created the relentless drive for progress, exploiting all life to increase profit. Since 1950, we humans have trebled in number to 7.5 billion, but our economic activity has increased eightfold. Our water use has quadrupled. The number of motor vehicles has increased sevenfold. Our use of paper has increased eightfold. Our use of fertilizer has increased 18-fold. To help repair our relationship with creation, we could, for example, buy wisely, buy less, and with our material possessions, reduce, repair, recycle, reuse. And instead of possessions, we can enjoy the rich diversity of each other and the simpler things in life. So verses 10, 11 and 12, please.
All prophets and priests, all cleaners and clerks, professors, lawyers, typists and teachers, job seekers, invalids, drivers and doctors, give to our God your thanks and praise. All speakers and diplomats, writers and artists, grocers, carpenters, students and stockmakers, seafarers, farmers, bakers and ministers, give to our God your thanks and praise. All children and kings, all people who play, give to our God your thanks and praise.
We rarely think about these issues of God's creation, the ecology, the life support system He has given us. If we do, we salve our conscience saying, oh, my impact is so tiny. And when we do feel responsible, we feel helpless. What difference can I make? Yet, when we confess to God, He forgives us and gives us courage to try again. He asks only that we each play our tiny, tiny part in His creation. If an infinite number of us each do our infinitesimally small bit, we can together restore our relationship with creation and with God. And we close with the one verse we have yet to hear of the Benedicite, which is the first verse.
O